I'm going to see if I can make an entire video about gold and silver without exaggerating once. Wish me luck. So the price of gold and silver is the topic that drives the bulk of activity on YouTube. If a person puts out a video telling you that the price of silver or gold is about to skyrocket, well then that video will get exponentially more traffic than one that isn't making a wild claim. The same goes for an exaggeration of falling prices. If a channel tells you that prices are tanking, it will get more clicks, even if the information in the video is completely untrue. So that's what we're working with, but I don't put much of that kind of content out for a few reasons. First of all, I'm just a lot more excited about accumulating gold as an asset than I am about trading it for profit. We all know that gold is incredibly valuable and it's actually fun to buy. So simply getting into that mindset of buying gold over time, well, that will get you thinking about how you spend money and whether or not you should be wasting it. And just seeing it accumulate is a pretty incredible feeling. You'll have an ever-increasing asset rather than a depreciating gadget that you don't need or debaucherous nights out on the town, also that you don't need. It's an easy win. The same goes for silver. Getting in the habit of buying a few ounces of silver each month was a turning point for me. It wasn't that I was living on the streets until I found silver or anything like that at all. It was just an easy, simple switch from wasting to saving. That didn't start with much, but as I started making more in my career, I started wasting more, and that happens to most people. And whether it's gold or it's silver or some kind of active investment, it doesn't matter. Getting a purpose is going to help you get off of that path of wasting money. I think that's why those Robert Kiyosaki books are so popular. People just get excited about something. And gold is an easy something to get excited about. It is tangible. You can hold it, you can pet it, you can let it do its hypnotic magic on you. It's easier to feel the headway that you make on your savings when it's gold. And really the only frustrating part in my time buying this stuff is that the price is just so hard to predict. There are always people telling you that it's about to explode, or they're trying to scare you into thinking that it's tanking. And what I've found is that almost none of them know what they're talking about. There are technical analysts out there that put out really useful information, but for every one of them, there's some knucklehead on YouTube telling you that Basel III is going to make the price of gold unattainable at the end of the month, or that this coming Saturday is the most important day for silver, you know how it goes in the history of the world. And the reason that kind of nonsense frustrates me personally is that people hear it and then they run out and overspend on metals only to be let down when that moonshot doesn't actually happen. And it's worse because the story is never that the moonshot didn't happen, it's just that it hasn't happened yet. So you get 99 hot tips before you get one that actually turns out, and even a broken clock is accurate once or twice a day. The problem then is just that new people come in, they hear this story, it sounds good, they overspend, and then eventually they get tired of holding the bag and they sell at a loss long before this pump ever happens. But if you strip out all of that nonsense and focus on training your brain to save and accumulate shiny metals, then you build an incredibly valuable asset that you can either turn into cash if you need it or hold it and accumulate it your entire life. Maybe you'll never need it, and you get to hand down something profound to a future you, meaning your kids or your grandkids. I've sold gold several times personally, though. I've sold all of the silver that I accumulated over 10 years, but I'm always buying gold back, and in the right circumstances, I'll buy silver again too. And that probably sounds like heresy to certain people, but all you need to take away from that is that it's very easy to convert if you need it. And to me, that makes metals far more valuable than they'd be if I just stored them away in a bunker. Now, anything I've sold in the past hasn't left me without enough to cover an emergency. So once I hit goals, if I exceed that, I really try to get to a point where I don't have to sell below it. That's kind of how I've operated in the past. And the point in this is that I really just don't get caught up in the idea that some event, some particular event, is going to make me forever sorry that I sold a little bit of it, or make me think that I have to rush out to buy before June 28th or something. This is a long-term asset. And because it's been coming up a lot lately, let me tell you about that June 28th deadline and what I know about Basel III. Now, at the end of this month, 30% of the European banks on the LBMA can no longer hold gold derivatives on their balance sheets. The earlier implications of Basel III placed gold as a Tier 1 asset. A lot of us have heard that, and that means that a bank could use 100% of its value as a reserve asset. Previously, it was a Tier 3 asset, and that meant that a bank could only use 50% of its value. So those banks could buy unallocated shares in gold ETFs and not have to worry about storing physical metals. And that option goes away in phases. So this is effectively regulating the LBMA, and at the end of December of this year, the remaining 70% of those European banks will be subject to the same rule. So over the long term, Basel III regulates the derivative market as it pertains to reserve assets. Super gripping stuff. Basically what that means is that if a bank wants to keep gold as a reserve asset, they are going to need to buy physical gold now instead. The idea here is that as banks buy more physical gold, it will increase the demand on gold and that will send the price up. But that isn't something that will happen overnight, and none of us really knows the scope of impact that will actually have. You and I probably aren't actually directly affected by reserve requirements. But if we stay on track, keep buying gold as it makes sense, then we might see a long-term increase in value from that kind of thing. So the silver pumpers have similar stories about unallocated silver ETFs. The pumpers and then the people who echo them, they think that the undoing of those ETFs would send the price of silver to the moon. And from what I've seen though, most of them don't understand the difference between having short positions on the silver derivative market and there being a difference between actual physical silver and the amount stated by those funds. So the idea that enough people buying physical silver will result in the COMEX not being able to fulfill deliveries isn't the same thing as squeezing hedge funds out of their short positions like what we're seeing with GameStop. Now that doesn't mean that silver won't gain on increased demand, it just means that a squeeze doesn't make sense. The COMEX can always settle delivery requests in cash, so even if they didn't have enough physical silver, they wouldn't be in trouble. And that isn't what a short squeeze is to begin with, so there's a lot of confusion on that topic. So if some kid is on YouTube telling you that you have to buy this Saturday to break the COMEX, well, they're putting out very bad information and they're encouraging you to buy at a very high price point. Now that particular bit of advice is past tense. You can go back and look at the advice when it was given, and then you can look at any time between then and now and see what it actually did, whether or not any of it actually came to pass. The spoiler is that it didn't. It was all bad information. Now, if the story instead was how great of a savings vehicle silver is, or how it has lots of potential to grow over time, then I think that that person is doing good work. And if they have some kind of information on a hot flip, telling you about an error coin or a limited mintage something or other, that can be helpful as well. Honestly, I don't pay a whole lot of attention to the silver YouTubers. I do watch some videos, kind of like some people watch a train wreck. They're just hard to look away from. But those predictions are almost always wrong. And I say almost out of grace. I've actually never seen a YouTuber's silver price prediction come true. All of that said, and I've said this before, there are far worse hobbies than collecting silver. Even if the price is disappointing over time, you're still accumulating a hard asset and you're having fun along the way, or at least you should be. So I'm a lot more into gold. You know that. It's because I'm focused more on long-term gains than I am on these short-term predictions. YouTubers are going to tell you that gold is a store of wealth and silver is for speculation, or just that silver has more potential. I don't agree there, but what I would say is that silver has kissed $50 in 2011. So 10 years later, it's still nowhere near its all-time high. And if you just use that as a marker, well then silver could nearly double. So if you trade silver, that's an interesting prospect, and I have SLV for that reason. If you buy it to hold it though, not to trade it, well, I don't know that a spike back to all-time highs is a good thing. I mean, that's up to you. Now, I don't buy physical silver personally because I don't like the premiums, and I'm just not as hopeful about its potential as some people. I do think that there's more potential in flipping silver coins, though, than there is in flipping gold coins. I think that's an easy statement to make. I'm just not that much of a flipper myself. I'm in this to build up hard assets, and then anything beyond that's either additional fun or additional frustration, and you get to choose which one that you get sucked into. So the reason I'm making this video is to answer all the comments about Basel III. I've had a bunch of people ask me to do a video on it. Now, I don't think anyone really knows if the regulations for banks holding derivatives will actually result in a bump in spot price for gold. But I'm willing to bet personally that June 29th won't look much different than June 28th because of it. I could be wrong. You can tell me I'm wrong in the comments. Let me know what you think, whether or not you think all of these predictions for skyrocketing prices and the rationale behind them are accurate, or if it's just noise. Now, personally, I think there are reasons to be buying gold with or without Basel III, and I think it's just this month's red herring. If we had a list of 10 reasons to buy gold and one of them was Basel III, I'm guessing that most of us would agree on about 9 of those points. Anyway, we can come back to it in July. So, hit the like button if you enjoy the topic, subscribe if you aren't already, and that's it really. You're off the hook after that. And if you're still here, I'm glad you made it all the way through. Thank you again for watching. I always appreciate your time. Take care.